اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. محبة الله, the love of Allah, محبة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the love of our messenger Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. That's our topic for today's reminder, today's lesson. Loving Allah and loving His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and loving one another, loving the believers in totality. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us in a beautiful hadith. He says, ثلاث من كن فيه وجد بهن حلاوة الإيمان. A person that has three things, if you're able to connect with three things, to have three realities in your heart, in your life, then you'll be able to taste the halawa of Iman, the sweetness of Iman, because faith has a sweetness. So the first, أن يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما, that Allah and His Messenger may be more beloved to you than anything other than the both of them. That means the love of Allah and His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam must dwell in our hearts to such an extent where there is nothing else that we are in love with like we are in love with Allah and His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, for a number of reasons, because everything that we've been given in the universe, in our existence, in our world, whether we can see it or we can't, whether we can count it or we don't, whether we can feel it or not, has been given us to by Al-Mun'im, and that is Allah. He is the benefactor of blessings. So all these blessings that we have, our health and our wealth and our air that we breathe and the water that we drink and the food that we eat and the animals and the vegetation that are here on earth, the water that Allah sends down for us, of rain, of mercy, of compassion, all of these things in the earth and the universe, the light, the solar, the sun, the moon, the mountains, the oceans, the fish, all these creatures are a blessing from Allah. And so we are naturally inclined to those that favor us, that gift us things. Generally, as human beings, that's the way we are wired. But what if we think about the one who gave us all things? And in fact, the people that give us things, well, it's Allah that gave us them to give to us. So essentially, all praise is due to Allah. And in fact, if we're going to love anyone, then Allah is most deserving of our love. But what about after Allah? Well, His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, he says, أحب إليه مما سواهما, that your love for Allah and His Messenger should be more intense than your love for anything other than the both of them. Because really, there's nothing that Allah has created in this entire universe that He loves compared to the love that He has for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's honor before Allah is such that he is the only one that has a praiseworthy station on the day of resurrection, right? Al-Maqam al-Mahmud, which all of the other nations and prophets will see and realize that it's not their place, but it's the place for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's his shafa'atul uzma, his supreme intercession, that will be granted before any other intercessions are granted on the day of resurrection. So, for us to taste the sweetness of Iman, the first step out of three is to love Allah and His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than anything else. وأن يحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله. That you love another person, and the reason that your love for them is for none other than the sake of Allah. Meaning, the reason that you come together with another person is because you both bring one another closer to Allah and closer to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if that's not the case, then it means it's not a hub fillah. It's not a love for the sake of Allah. So this Ramadan and beyond, think about the people that you come into contact with. Who are your friends? Who are your contacts? Who are your networks? Who are your acquaintances? Who do you like to spend time with? And ask yourself, when you spend time in their company, Do they draw you nearer to Allah, or do they make you forget about Allah? Do they make your desire to long and to be with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ more intense? Or does it make you, or do they make you, or does their company make you and their influence inclined towards other people of this world and role models that aren't honorable in the sight of Allah? So that's our second step, that you love one another for the sake of Allah, and that's the only reason that brings you together to engage in that love. And the third step, وَأَنْ يَكْرَهَ أَنْ يَعُودَ فِي الْكُفْرِ بَعْدَ أَنْ أَنْقَذَهُ اللَّهُ مِنْهُ, and that you hate to return to a state of disbelief, of misguidance, after Allah has saved you from that era of disbelief. And this particularly applies to those who have embraced Islam after a life of not knowing Allah and His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also it applies for a Muslim who perhaps for a period of time has not really been practicing and serious. It might have been up until this Ramadan you really didn't show any seriousness in your faith to Allah. It might have been before this COVID-19 pandemic you weren't really thinking about death and about the afterlife and about your religious obligations and the purpose of your life. But when you started to see people all around the world dying because of this virus, that people were getting sick and complications occurring and great panic, and you began to think about, what's my real purpose on this earth? And how can I draw nearer to the one that created me? And so you begin to start thinking now. And so therefore you've been able to be shown a way now from a path of perhaps forgetfulness to a path of reminder. كَمَا أَنْ يُكْرَهَ أَنْ يُقْذَفَ فِي النَّارِ, as a person would hate to be thrown into the fire. So you would hate to leave Islam, just like you would hate to be thrown into the fire. So these three qualities, if you and I and all of us can connect with them and try and apply them and make them a part of us, that our love for Allah and His Messenger Muhammad ﷺ is beyond any love that we have in this earth for anyone. That doesn't mean we don't love anyone, no. In fact, the second step is that when we love each other, we do it for Allah and of course His Messenger Muhammad ﷺ. So our love is now contingent. Our love for one another is dependent upon our love for Allah and His Messenger Muhammad ﷺ. And the third, this love for Islam, this love for this deen of Allah. And it was an absolutely amazing sight to watch, albeit via live stream, that Shaykh Muhammad Harbi Hafidhahullah called the adhan at Maghrib on the minara of Masjid Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala an, established in the 1970s and now been some 40-50 years, Allah knows best. And this, for the first time in our history, has the adhan been announced aloud publicly on the minara in this masjid. And thinking about the meanings and the significance of the adhan, the beauty of it, the Prophet ﷺ would tell Sayyidina Bilal, his mu'adhin, "Arihna biha ya Bilal." Grant us some type of comfort through it, O Bilal, meaning your call to prayer, the adhan. And the mu'adhin will have the highest, the caller to prayer will have the highest of necks on Yawm al-Qiyamah, right, on the day of rising, because they were people who used to call others to the worship of Allah and to the establishment of the prayer. And to wrap up, how is it that we can begin to increase in our love for Allah, for one another, for the sake of Allah, and love for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Well, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, إِذَا أَحَبَّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَخَاهُ فَلْيُعْلِمْهُ أَنَّهُ يُحِبَّهُ. If one of you, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, loves another, then you should inform that person that you love them. Don't just stay silent and be mute, but express that emotion and express that love. That is part and parcel of our Islam. And on one occasion, the Prophet ﷺ hears someone telling him, "I love such and such person," that was passing by. The Prophet says, "Have you told him that you love him?" And the man says, "No." He says, "Go tell him." And so the man went and he said, indeed, I love you for the sake of Allah. And so the man replied, out of joy and happiness, he says, and may the one that you love me for his sake also love you. Meaning, may Allah also love you. And so therefore this was an established sunnah, that when you love someone, when you detect that love in your heart, say, Inni uhibbuka fillah. Indeed, I love you for Allah. Or a sister to a sister will say, Inni uhibbuki fillah. Indeed, I love you for the sake of Allah. And the person that hears this message of love should respond. You should respond in saying, أحبك الذي أحببتني من أجله. May the one who you love me for their sake, meaning Allah, also love you. And this is the reality of love. The Prophet ﷺ also makes the entrance into Jannah conditional upon Iman. He says, لا تدخلوا الجنة حتى تؤمنوا. He says, none of you shall enter paradise until you believe. حتى تؤمنوا. And then he makes Iman conditional on mutual love. He says, وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا, meaning you will not be able to attain Iman, true faith. Ooh, that's a pretty serious statement. وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا, you will not be able to attain faith. حَتَّى تَحَابُّوا, until you love one another. It's not just one person loving the other. That love needs to be reciprocated in the ummah. Meaning in the family, the husband must love the wife and the wife must love the husband. The father must love the mother must love the father. The son must love the father and the mother, and likewise reverse. The sister needs to love her brother and the brother needs to love his sister. The sister needs to love her sister, and likewise that sister needs to love the sister. But we find in our households, in our families, that's sometimes where there's feuds and conflicts between brothers, between sisters, between siblings. But we need to express that love. We need to show that love, because when we do that, it allows us to arrive at Iman and faith. And when we arrive at Iman and faith, it allows us entrance into Jannah. And if we're asking ourselves, well, how do we do that? The Prophet ﷺ continues in the hadith reported by Imam Muslim. He says, أَوَلَا أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى شَيْءٍ إِذَا فَعَلْتُمُوهُ تَحَابَبْتُمْ. Subhanallah, Ya Sayyidi, Ya Rasulallah. He says, shall I not direct you towards an action? If you were to perform it, you would gain love for one another and you would mutually love one another. That love would be exchanged by both of you. He says, the answer, أَفْشُوا السَّلَامَ بَيْنَكُمْ. He says 3 words. Spread peace amongst you. In English it's 4. أَفْشُوا السَّلَامَ بَيْنَكُمْ. He says, all I want you to do is spread peace amongst yourselves. Don't spread hatred. Don't spread bickering. Don't spread conflict. Don't spread argumentation. Don't spread picking on one another. Don't spread passing judgments and assuming about one another. Don't spread lies about one another. Don't spread cheating one another. Don't spread harming one another. Don't spread insulting one another. Don't spread swearing at one another. Don't spread ridiculing one another. Don't spread humiliating one another. A true mu'min listens. أَفْشُوا السَّلَامَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Our greeting of salam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This was the greeting that Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam learns from the malaikatul kiram. Prophet Adam learns it from the angels. This Assalamu alaikum, and Allah says to him, this is your greeting and the greeting of your descendants after you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But brothers and sisters, it's not just words on our tongue. If it's words on our tongue, but it's not producing the peace amongst ourselves, it means there's something missing. We need to dig deep and really do it genuinely. أَفْشُوا السَّلَامَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Spread peace amongst you by caring for one another, inquiring with one another, asking about one another, helping one another, looking to what makes the other person happy in doing that, and finding out what makes them upset and avoiding that, not doing the opposite as an ummah. But we start off one-on-one, individuals, as families. And what perfect time now to start it in Ramadan, whilst most of our times is going to be spent with our families. How can we spread peace amongst our families? The Prophet ﷺ also says, Tahadu tahabbu, exchange gifts with one another, and you will also increase in your love for one another. And that gift doesn't have to be something huge, but it could be something symbolic, something small, but to show the other person that you're actually, or that they are actually on your mind, in your heart, and you actually thought of them when you produced, when you made. It could be something that you bake, something that you cook, something that you sew, something that you buy, something that you want to share with them. Gift could be anything. Tahadu tahabbu. And so that's the third way that we can increase our love for one another, by giving one another gifts. And also another way, the Prophet ﷺ says, the fourth way, he says, Zur ghibban tazdad hubban. He says, visit one another from time to time, and you shall increase in love. Obviously, our visits in these situations is going to be limited, but outside this, inshallah, let us visit one another in each other's houses, in each other's centers, in each other's masajid, in each other's public places. When we visit one another, family to family, sibling to sibling, friend to friend, it increases in our love for one another. And in that way, we will be able to increase in our love for the sake of Allah and His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We ask Allah in these blessed days and nights of Ramadan that Allah, for Allah and His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, be the carriage by which we travel and ride through this short and temporary dunya, through the barzakh, into the Jannah, over the Sirat, in the company of the Sayyid al-Anbiya al-Mursaleen, our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.